let's talk about design decisions in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. When I say Marvel, you think Neon Siege of Death or Ultra Mobility. I don't know. I don't know what you think really. They are my first thoughts. But as a franchise, it's pretty consistently had low execution on basic B&Bs. As an example, there are no links for a lot of characters. You press buttons and it does a lot of damage compared to something of similar difficulty in another game. And there aren't as long, complex motions. No double quarter circle forward or any 360 motions. I assume this is because you play as 3 characters instead of 1, so the characters vary a little bit in what they can do, but for the most part it's just memorising their stuff and playing within their system. But anyway, instead it has high execution in mobility. You can dash and then crouch, you can dash and jump into a dash, super jump dashes, instant air dash, triangle jumps, that stuff. This system of high mobility allowed the really good players to find infinites and create a super quick meta, flying all over the place like gravity allergic Power Rangers. It's also probably the fastest fighting game in the history of fighting games. Probably the more notable thing. This speed does a few things. Number one, it makes it cheap, which is the common word to describe it from intermediate players. In turn, this cheapness becomes lack of control, and it makes the game very difficult to care about. For the rest, it will put those players off. It's not so bad at a low level, where fast and flashy is fun. That's like Vanilla 1. But the moment in any competitive shit, this game tries to send your fingertips off because it's so fast. This combined with them being old at this point, even for MVC3, which is 6 years old now, or especially old if it's the ancient, basically plays on a cassette tape level like MVC2. That game is 16 years old, so it's really struggling for new players. So you can ask, like, why would a new player want to sink time into that to play at a competitive level when there's less people and it's much harder than something like Street Fighter 5? What's in it for them? And there's even more problems. You're revisiting not only an old game, it's a completely established and sussed out game. So you're miles behind in terms of learning all the stuff, the knowledge, punishers, all that type of stuff. So you'll naturally skip ahead to the characters that give you the best chance of performing. There's nothing worse than challenging the best guy left on Xbox Live with the low tiers and him getting bored kicking your ass for an hour. To list that out and why hard old games have a problem. Number one, they are fast, makes them hard to play, hard to learn, unpopular. Number two, they are old, causes them to become unpopular as players move on. Double unpopular. The equation is complete. So for MVCI, I think they've made it easier and slightly slower. Not SF5 level easy. The core movement of Marvel looks very similar, but you live a lot longer, and long combos aren't based on strict infinites or TAC glitches. What else makes up Marvel as a series? It's a very airborne franchise. You get a lot more control over characters who are in the air. Super jump and then fade forward, press and attack, air dash back, or double jump, or everyone has some form of ground pound, die kicking, or a fly. The 8 dashes have pretty consistently made up about 1/10 of the cast. MVCI has a slightly higher representation, but this is presumably not the full roster, as DLC is pretty much a given with a Capcom game in 2017. Why Capcom's DLC sucks. They follow the mantra, you can't please everyone, to such a retarded degree, when really you can please everyone. You just have to have enough stuff. Why do one DLC at a time, paced out, when you could do all 6 at once? Because when it's one at a time, everyone is going to give their opinion on that one thing. And when the majority of people dislike it, like with Abigail at EVO, you'll get a pretty bad rap. If instead they had done Minat and Abigail, and then continue to release Minat at the time they did normally, Abigail would get less of a bad rap, because if people liked her, they'd be happier in the meantime, rather than seeing Abigail and hating it, thinking their waifu hunter club is going to skip this month's meeting. Anyway, back on track. We can compare the speed in all of them and see if I think has happened. MVCI is slightly slowed down as a design decision to encourage newer players in. I picked the fastest in MVC2, so that's Storm and Magneto. For MVC3 I can only go over to get Magneto. He's pretty fast. MVC3 is broken anyway. You get X Factor that makes shit 30% faster, so what's the point? Magneto is fine, yeah? All you need. For MVCI I picked Ultron, Dormammu, who was a slow one in MVC3, and I wanted Captain Blonde Tits, but for whatever reason no one would do a triangle dash with her. There's a few more: Iron Man, Morrigan, Jeddah, stranger ones, and presumably anyone else with a fly is also an 8-way dasher. Next problem with this is these may or may not be frame perfect tri-dashes, so they may not be that helpful. But it appears, looking at this, that MVC3 and MVCI are slower than MVC2. I don't think you needed any help with that one, and arguably MVCI is slower than MVC3 due to the removal of X Factor. MVCI may also just look slower due to unfamiliarity or lack of practice, or due to the bigger character models and using a small screen. It's not much slower either. In older Marvels, besides Sentinel, Fill Up the Screen, Jenkins, characters took up very little space, around 5% each, and super jumps went around 3 screens high. In MVCI, characters take up 10% each, and the super jumps go 2 screens or 1.5 screens high, which makes the game look slower a little bit, tiny bit, but it also makes it easy to follow and react to things as your visual cue is bigger. The forward movement though is definitely slower. No one has picked a character in the Wolverine, Cammy Felicia archetype, Superfloor, Turbo Dashes, Dive Kick characters. I don't think they exist at all. MVCI only really has Strider and Spider-Man, who would, I guess, fit that, but without assists, does the Rat Dasher archetype even have a purpose? There's no point in getting footage for this. It's so rare that anyone full dashes across the screen in a Marvel game due to the amount of projectiles and air dashes that you just won't get to be able to compare them fairly, or maybe even at all. There's 2 systems you could use to compare them: percent full screen versus time, or how far a single dash of a returning character goes and how quickly. So Haga was in MVC3 and MVCI. But yeah, I don't see how you could do it really. Not including Felicia, I thought was really strange, and given the lack of characters like her in this one, it might just be that they wanted to move away from that style of character. Or it might be a far more saddening reason: she's out because of censorship and they don't want another ESPN deal similar to Mika and Cammy. At least those two have alternate outfits. I don't think I've ever seen Felicia in something other than nothing, and who knows how long it would Capcom to give her a DLC outfit. She's female, so probably they already have 5 outfits. There's a lot more to go into with the roster. Capcom are definitely taking the esports route again, and at the same time what makes Marvel as a game tick competitively, and what tends to happen with the roster. 80% is Forsaken, just thrown in the trash, and the strong characters stay in this meta that just stays forever. They don't ever leave, because they're the only characters people play. Because for a lot of people, Marvel is a side game, it's like their secondary game, so they just want an easy character who's effective. And that just happened to be Zero. Zero was a fucking everywhere. Zero and Virgil, everywhere. What was the point? So maybe they didn't want a big roster, just end up with basically dead, casuals-only characters that they'd have to buy Season 2 rebalance that they're viable, or just let them rot and no one would ever play them again. Or they don't want a big roster out of another laziness, you know, just the fact they didn't want to make characters, or they want to sell DLC. None of the reasons to make a small roster are good in terms of the game as a product. The only upside the only upside to a condensed cast means you'll get better competitive balance, and that's it. Next design decision: reduced inputs and hecticness. The assist mechanic in old Marvels took up 2 buttons and created some fun little ways to extend combos, especially for the limited low tier characters whose launchers are short range. In neutral they feature heavily as tools that allow for pressure, mix-up setups, cover your approach, create a stronger zone, act as reversals, or act as really quick anti-airs, which are just 1 button, all while not impairing your active character's movements. Assists are a really heavy defining thing in Marvel that I underestimated them that basically at this point in the video. With the removal of assists, the composition thinking is much reduced and characters are left to their own devices. From a developer perspective, this makes the cast much easier to balance, as team comps do not impact individual characters. For newer players or spectators, it makes the game a lot easier to follow whatever's going on screen, and you'll no longer, as a noob, just run into doom missiles suddenly appearing and disrupting you mid like pressure string. The mechanic that has replaced this staple is active tag, which in essence turns your main character into an assist for the character that comes in. It may or may not be safe, we don't know. No one is testing these things given the chance. It's annoying. Additionally, in design, it also freezes the game for a short time, allowing confirms and a moment to acknowledge proceedings for everyone else spectating. So instead of choosing between 3 different assists per character, and in the game the 2 backup characters, you have to pick which assist you want to use. You choose between your character's standard toolset which you may be more familiar with, and then press active switch. I think it's a decent step for approachability. Arguably the stones replaced assist. Get the fuck out of my video. It's a new move for everyone. It's not an assist. It's just a thing. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's not an assist. You just press them. Everyone gets them. How can it be an assist if everyone gets them at the same time? And there's no risk to me that's the difference. An assist, you risk putting your character on screen to get punched in the face. You don't have that with the stones. You just press them. A lot of characters have fly, but I've not seen anyone use it outside of combos. Morrigan uses it in a combo. That's it. Maybe they are shorter or start lower down or so much slower on startup and recovery that no one wants to use it. Don't know. No one's testing this shit. No one fucking tests anything. I don't know what the fuck they're even doing with it. People won't test this shit. They are literally using it as a bonus time with the game before the game comes out. And why not? It's your bonus time with the game. It's not mine. It's not for the good of the people. Fuck the people. Anyway, tell me what design changes you've noticed Capcom have made, and other ones they really should have addressed at this point into the series. Because Marvel vs. Capcom is now like what? It's nearly 20 years old. And if you got this far, as always, thanks for watching.